Hello and welcome to the CRM Zen Show, where we talk about all things Zoho. This is episode 116, Just Use Deluge, recorded on Friday, October 16th, 2020 from Zenatta Consulting. I'm Brett Martin.
I'm Tyler Colt, and let's get right on into the show.
Well, before we do that, let's get some quick announcements. We want to let everybody know that we've got our webinar coming up the October 27th, so 11 days from time we're recording this. And that's going to be on Zoho Books, Overview, and Best Practices. And also, we talked about a little bit last week, but for more events like that, we've really been beefing up the events calendar over at CRM Zen. Everything we can find that has anything to do with Zoho, if you go over there and check it out, I mean, we're finding 2 or 3 events a day now, it seems, and adding them on in. Oftentimes, though, it seems like some of these events are announced like the day they're actually happening. So that's kind of, or a day before. So you want to check up on that because there's some really cool things. Zoho actually just announced a complete 3-day training course. There was a fee for it, but it's got a coupon, and so we're kind of posting all that stuff up. So there's some good things there. So go over and take a look. All right, and so hey, Tyler, before we get into the news here, though, it was good to see you the other day coming on in from. I flew into Ohio and Northeast Ohio, and then drove down to Cincinnati and got to have dinner with you and your lovely girlfriend. It was a lot of fun, and I'm continuing this journey. And so I'm in Nashville now. So hopefully this recording turns out good. And next Friday, I think we'll be recording this from Tampa. So then I'll finally be heading back. But seeing a lot of our Zoho or Zenatta employees here and clients and customers. So it's been a good trip. So anyway, let's get
making the pilgrimage.
I know, the huge pilgrimage. Now we'll get right into the news here. So kind of just out of the gate here, Zoho Forms now integrates with PageSense. This is kind of interesting. You know, on PageSense, if you don't know, it's a bit of code that you can put on your website. And it can tell you, kind of give you a heat map of where all your visitors are and what they've, where they're lingering on your site, what they're clicking on your site. If they went to a form, you can kind of see that. But now this is kind of going just quite a bit further and actually telling you kind of line by line as they're filling out the form, kind of what they're doing, if I'm reading this right, Tyler.
Yeah, it basically is a tool that is going to try to help you track where you might be seeing some fall off on your forms. Right, so if you know that 100 people visited your Contact Us page, but only 70 filled out the form, right, you can kind of start to track and see where those other people fell off. Kind of the goal being to just optimize the layout of your page or the layout of your form to try to encourage people to fill it out. So now if you kind of shoot for the stars and have a long Contact Us form and you find that people are falling off before they finish it up, you can make it a little shorter and get higher pass through.
Yeah, and it's sometimes I think I see that where it's kind of, there's a lot of too much information and people bail. It happens to me all the time. I'll go to do something to, hey, click here to download this white paper, and I look at it and it's like, no, I don't have time. You look at the form and just decide to abandon it right then and there. So, all righty. And then on the Zoho Marketplace, they added a ton of stuff. At least this is kind of the September roundup. You and I were talking, though, it seems like a lot of this stuff was there before last September, but
unless it's just things that maybe are released in a different fashion. But some of these, inventory for analytics, sales IQ for analytics, these are all things that have been plugged into Zoho Analytics for a while here. I know Shopify with Zoho Campaigns, right? The ability to do abandoned cart, that's been around for a little while. So I'm not sure, maybe some of these are just, significant updates to these, or if they maybe were re-released through the marketplace, rather than as a standalone integration. But yeah, lots of good stuff here, but we did just kind of notice that a handful of those seem to be, repeat entries from the past.
Yeah, I don't know sometimes when we see those lists, I wonder if maybe they're just pulling stuff that was, updated, because a lot of that is old. So anyway. But it would be nice to know what was new. They were kind of giving, I'm not really seeing those breakdowns before, here are the new marketplace extensions for CRM. Here were the new marketplace extensions for all of the different applications that had marketplaces. And that was kind of nice because you'd be able to look at the 5 or 6 new ones and kind of tell that they were new. But I think other than watching it every single day, it's hard to figure it out. But the marketplace is growing and growing. So WorkDrive added a whole bunch of new file preview modes, which is kind of cool. So, really, what a preview is when you're in WorkDrive, you'll kind of see this. You'll click on it, and it'll give you a PDF, or you can click on a video. You're not really opening in it. You're not downloading it. You can't edit it. It's just giving you a nice preview. So they kind of gave you 5 different preview modes that they came up with, and nice, just kind of a nice enhancement to WorkDrive all the way around.
Yeah, some of them, of course, for PDFs, other for audio and video. So you can even speed up the video in a preview. So if you want to just kind of fly through something real quick and take a quick glance at it, you can do that. But overall, just a nice set of updates, working across tons of different file formats there over in WorkDrive.
And then continuing on with the news here, we were talking about this earlier, so we'll get your take on this, but Zoho CRM Webforms, not to be confused with Zoho Forms, which is a standalone form builder, but inside the CRM, you have the ability to create your own web forms. And a lot of people just have CRM products, so it makes a lot of sense. They made a lot of enhancements to both the web form and A/B testing. So I know you were playing around with this the other day, and you've got some thoughts.
Yes, it's definitely a nice update. One of the kind of key things here is that, if you are running A/B testing, right, you can decide to just automatically launch the winning version of the form. An A/B test would basically be, creating 2 similar but slightly different versions of a form and seeing if one of them gets a higher submission rate or pass-through rate. And what they've done is a quick little update where now if one of them ends up getting 30% higher conversion than the other, it'll go ahead and just launch the winning version, which is super, super nice. We were talking about it before the show. It'd be a nice thing to have in Zoho Forms as well. They sometimes split some functionality between these different tools. So somewhere in Zoho Forms, I can take a subform, right, and map that to the CRM, or you can't do that with the CRM web form. But over with the web form, I can A/B test and I can, embed and layer on custom design. So it's kind of interesting when they have these different applications kind of sprinkled through, or different functionalities in all these different apps. Sometimes it'd be nice to kind of consolidate or, solidify some of that across each version of their form builder.
Yeah, I mean, for me, when you have Zoho Forms and Zoho Survey should have everything, right? There shouldn't be any missing functionality in either of those. And you especially shouldn't see some functionality inside this basic CRM web form module that you can't kind of get in one of those. But it's a nice enhancement. We just get asked these questions all the time. Why is there so much overlap? And it's because a lot of people don't have Zoho One, or they just have this little point product, and then they add another point product on, and you've got that little bit of overlap there. But anyway, really nice. I like the ability to auto launch. I mean, that's kind of the main thing. Set your winner and have it just automatically go out. All right, and then moving on, so there's some portal pricing changes. So inside the CRM, you actually have a client portal that you can launch out. And so they've made some changes on this. So the minimum number of users of a portal used to be 50, and now it's been reduced to 1. And so it's basically... so it used to be 51 to 100 users was $12 per user per month. Now it's 1 to 1,000. And then 100 and above used to be $10 a month, and now it's 8. The lower tier went to 10. But if I get this right, Tyler, if I'm remembering, it used to be the first 50 were free on the portal.
I don't think we don't implement it often. It's a little lightweight in terms of the functionality, so it doesn't often come up where it really would work out. We generally end up going with Catalyst Connect portal or some type of other solution. It's not one I don't know off the top of my head.
It's clearly not worth $10 a user per month. There's not a lot you can do inside there.
Versus some of the other options or kind of workarounds for this.
Yeah, they've made some fixes to it in the past. It used to be that if the you can kind of see what you own in this portal. So what this does is it allows an outside user to go ahead and log into basically a very stripped down light version of the CRM, where all they see is, I want to say it's contacts, accounts, leads, deals. Is that it? Is there anything more that gets stuck in there?
I don't think so.
But yeah. And if they're the owner or it's been shared with them, I think they can see it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was one of those things where if the deal was created in the CRM, and even if they were made the owner, they could not edit that when they came in. So they actually had to create it, or they had to make a copy of it, and then you could do it. There's just a lot of little kind of odd things about it. It has a lot of potential, but I agree with you. It's not something that we implement. We usually use Catalyst Connect as a fantastic portal that's a WordPress plugin that has hundreds times more functionalities and considerably cheaper than this at $10 per user per month. So we'll see. We'll have to play around with it. I wonder if they're making some more adjustments to the portal or not. But anyway, interesting to follow up on that. All right. And then Zoho CRM has changed the whole configuration for the unsubscribe link. Again, most of the time, I think we would be handling all of this out of Zoho Campaigns, but CRM having a ton of functionality, you actually can send out mass emails. You can have people unsubscribe inside the CRM. So they've changed that ability as to how you can configure that and set that up.
Yeah, they definitely made it a lot easier here. It basically works like dropping in a standard button, when you're working on a template. You can set up a custom redirect if you'd like, or you can redirect to a standard thank you page. I'd be interested to see the amount of people using this. The limit on the CRM, pretty much regardless of how many users you have for mass emails per day, is 1,000. You can pay a little extra and get that bumped up to 2,500, but that's kind of like their hard cap. So, I'd be surprised anyone really doing large scale email marketing is just going to be stonewalled kind of by those limits. But if you do have kind of a smaller marketing effort, something that, you don't really feel the need to spin up an entire instance of campaigns to run, this will definitely be a nice function for you.
Yeah. And one of the things I'd like to see them add is the ability to, both in this and campaigns, is to unsubscribe selectively, right? I don't think we don't have that yet, do we?
From a list rather than they did roll that out as long as you set up all of your lists properly in campaigns.
Okay, so then you can have them click an unsubscribe button, and that will give them all of the various lists they're subscribed to and can subscribe to.
Yeah, they get kind of the standard like unsubscribe or edit my preferences links.
Okay. Good.
And if you go to the edit your preferences is where you kind of get the whole breakdown.
Well, that's good. Well, good on you, Zoho. All right. All right. And now this is interesting, man. We've been talking about wizards quite a bit here lately. What do you think? There were a whole bunch of new enhancements to the wizards, which I think will make them maybe a little more user-friendly and a little more powerful.
Yeah, so the wizards are, I think there's a lot of potential there. They're just still a little bit new. So, basically what the wizards do in the CRM is that, let's say you have a lead record. You can create that lead the standard way, right? By kind of running down the page, adding all the fields, or you can create a wizard, which kind of, separates out those different sections into their own page, right? So you might have a page for contact information. They click save and next, then they get a page for their address information, right? They click save and next, kind of moves them through the process. We played around with these a little bit when they first came out, found them a little bit light on functionality. And just in the sense that, every single button either had to change the page or only save the record. You couldn't have like a button for a function. And there were just some odd little bits of, missing functionality. They're definitely working on it here. So they've kind of improved some of the abilities to loop back or circle through a wizard, making that a little bit easier, which is definitely nice. And then they've made it a little bit easier to reuse different fields throughout the wizard. I think one of the things on here that stands out to me is that you can add widgets to the wizard layout now. And basically a widget is a little piece of embedded content that comes from outside Zoho. So, an example of a widget might be an embedded Zoho Analytics report, or, an embed of Google Maps if you have a little like API tool that, is displaying that.
That's
so that could be very, very, very cool.
I
Very
agree.
cool. I mean, I'd
Yeah,
love to see that just on the normal record layouts, but I won't get
well, I think
greedy. Maybe this is step one.
well,
Um,
you can have the widgets on the regular list, but the funny thing is, I like the repositioning of the buttons too. That's kind of
mhm,
key. I mean, there's a lot that makes this more useful. It does simplify things tremendously.
mm,
And so it's pretty good. Oh, by the way, kind of on a side note here, because I don't have it on here, but talking about simplification, the Biggin team reached out to us after. Remember a couple of shows ago we talked about we did our synchronization between CRM and Biggin, and it kind of was a disaster. Um, but they were really great. They listened to the show. They reached out. The product manager did and said, "Hey, we've got some ideas around this." You pointed out a lot of bugs, so we got together with them on this. It was interesting in the conversation. So, by the way, to fix it, if you actually want to do this migration, just a couple little minor things. You just have to make sure that you have completely mapped all of your pipeline deal stages, that you've created those deal stages inside Biggin before you do the conversion.
mhm.
That's kind of the big thing there. There were a couple other little bugs. There were some parsing errors, and which just caused some other things, but they fixed all of that. But we were talking about it, and I said, "Hey, one of the things I noticed in deal stages on there is this. You can only have one closed won and one closed lost. You can't
Mhm.
really set what they are." And I said, guys, what if people want to change what a closed won stage is actually called? They said, well, we wanted to keep this simplified. I said, well, yes, but now that you've got CRM, you still want to keep it simplified. But
Yeah, there's a
they're
lot of
making
use cases for that where, if you're a real estate agent, you sell renting agreements, you might want to mark that someone has leased and that's closed one, and then
right,
next someone has moved in and that's another
right.
closed one. There's plenty of valid reasons to want more than one closed one
You know,
stage.
so we'll see where Biggin goes, because where I'm seeing value in it is, maybe you'll have somebody who wants to pay the $7 a month and just buy it to have this super lightweight contact manager and maybe deal manager. But getting to widgets or to um, wizards. If you look at the wizards, they're basically, the idea there is to simplify a process. And oftentimes we're seeing this in a deal, right? We're seeing this in a sale.
Mhm.
It's like step by step, take them through. And that's kind of there's this overall simplification inside of Biggin. And I think, we could see people say, hey, I want to just deploy. I'm not going to give my salespeople access to the CRM. I'm only going to give them access to Biggin. And that's where they're going to
Mhm.
manage all the sales. And then that's going to flow back through. So we'll see. We'll see.
There's definitely a lot of potential there.
Yeah, there really is. And let's move on to Zoho Desk. This is kind of interesting. So I put this in here, Tyler, specifically for you. But they've got, so for people that are developing extensions for Zoho Desk, I guess it was next to impossible to access Zoho Desk resources created by an extension without knowing their values. And now they've made it so you can actually just look into the JSON file. Did I
Basically
get
just
that
query
right?
and get a big dump of them. Yeah, so you're still gonna have to parse through this kind of, because this is gonna give you a big old block of data when you query this. But they basically just consolidate it so that you don't have to dig through multiple different areas to kind of get this data, right? They've consolidated where you can just query this one big block of resources information and then parse through what you need from there.
Nice. Nice. Well, I hope that makes your life a little easier there, Tyler. All right. So, all right, let's move on. And I believe, what do we have here? Mobile app news. This is kind of just every now and then we get one that I think makes a lot of sense. So, Zoho Projects now adds a multi-select for custom fields. We've been starting to see a lot of these little things. They actually added this into Desk last time, didn't they? You had that ability to do a multi-select in
Yep.
Desk over in iOS. And so now they've just brought it in. So if you have a multi-select field, you can go ahead and do that. I'm always the mobile teams. They've been working hard, and I think we're seeing they're really taking advantage of everything in iOS 14 right now.
Mm-hmm.
And there's just a whole bunch of different things you seem to be able to do in there that we're not really seeing them do over in um, Android in a lot of cases. I mean, it seems like Android lags a little bit before it kind of catches up. But nice little update there to uh, Zoho projects for mobile. And Tyler, that then brings us to our implementation of the week. What do you got?
Yes, this one is taking advantage of Zoho Surveys and the ability to trigger a custom deluge function when a survey is completed. So, thinking back to what we were talking about earlier with Zoho Forms and Zoho Webforms and then Zoho Survey, one of the bits of functionality that's unique to a Zoho Survey is that you can actually trigger a function just on the submission of a survey itself. And so what we kind of did here is taking advantage of the CRM integration to create specific task notifications for contacts once they complete a survey. So one of the advantages with surveys is that, in the integration with the CRM, you're basically able to embed kind of special survey links in the email templates where when you send them out and when people respond, it actually saves the survey in a related list to that contact or to that lead. They've got some kind of special rules around there where you can actually set up some lead scoring or contact scoring based on the surveys. And there's kind of a lot of value in that CRM integration. But one of the downsides is that the completion of a survey can't trigger a follow-up to activity or workflow in the CRM. So, a common thing that you might want to do is when a survey is completed, notify that contact's owner in the CRM that contact completed that survey. And there really just isn't any predefined way to do this. Kind of your two options would be to like pass a hidden field in the survey, right? That would kind of mark it as like contact has taken survey A. But what happens when you have survey A and then survey B and survey C? It just becomes kind of a headache. Or if they're going to take the survey more than once, if it's like a quarterly check-in or something like that. So what we did is we basically set up a little custom function where when they complete the survey, we go ahead and query the CRM with the email address from the survey. That email is pre-filled when you send it out from the CRM, so we know that it's going to match the record in the CRM. Once it finds that matching contact or lead, it goes ahead and just creates a little follow-up task for the record owner, letting them know, hey, John Smith has completed survey A, and it basically will notify them with an email notification as well as a task just directly to the owner right when that's completed. So it's kind of a nice way to do this where, you're not reliant on passing through any hidden values or stamping the record specifically that survey is done. Just using that ability to run functions via Zoho Surveys.
Nice. We're seeing this more and more. I noticed that. Could you have done this with Flow and just decided it was easier to do it with a custom function?
You could. You could do it with Flow submission. You could do it with a webhook. You can also trigger webhooks from Survey and capture that with Flow and kind of take it that way. But we noticed that they've added that trigger to just run functions. And, if we have the choice of running something in Flow or via a Deluge function, we go ahead and just use the function. They just run faster, a little cleaner, and not much longer to implement once you know how to work with Deluge. These things kind of be put together pretty quickly.
Nice. All right. And that brings us to this week's read of the week. This is again over at CRMBuyer, Denis Pombriant. Just man, oh man, this guy, I like his take on CRM. It seems like he really is doing nothing but think about the CRM marketplace, think about where the CRM marketplace is going, contemplate adoption, where they're going with it. And, he posits the question, why hasn't it taken over the world? He basically is like, it's just training. And, I've got the quote that I pulled out of this article is, it's tempting to say that customers just need to get down to work, but that ignores the pressing reality. If my data is right, the people who need CRM are already underwater. They're working too hard and spending more than 8 hours a day that they are paid for. So there's scarcely any time to take on something new. That's partly why my studies indicate relative complacency with the cobbled together systems they are using. At least they can do their job, make their quotas, and go home. So I love that. But it's it's an interesting take because I think we see this all the time, and it's what we talk about, which is, man, you've got to make it easy to use, and you really got to make it so that it makes whoever's using it, it's got to make their job easier, right? At the end of the day, if it's not making their job easier, then it's just, it's kind of useless. And he does a pretty big survey he's done here. And he's kind of gone through all of these various little areas where, it's tripping people up and it's not getting adoption?
Yeah, I think one of the big things too, outside of even just CRM, this can really be applied to many things, but change is really, really hard, right? To ask, a salesperson to attend all these training sessions and really commit to using a new system, that's time not spent on working leads. That's time not spent on closing deals, right? So there's this huge inertia to just keep doing what you're doing because of exactly what he said. We still have to meet our quotas. Even if you're asking me to learn a new CRM, I'm still expected to meet my quota, right? So it takes, a collaborative effort between sales leaders and salespeople to really make it okay. Maybe we're going to be under quota this month because we're really going to focus on making these changes. But it can be a hard sell. And, sometimes these things have to take a while, or you really have to slow down and focus on the change itself. But it definitely puts people in a tricky position when they want to make, significant changes to process.
Well, it definitely does. I mean, even minor changes. You and I were having a conversation the other day. We've got, sometimes we'll go in and we'll look at a CRM and they've done the best they can, but they've added maybe 20, 30, 40 fields, and they're just a jumble. Nothing's broken into sections, nothing's anywhere. It's just this jumble of fields on the page. But they've been running with that for maybe a couple of years. So they actually can look at all those fields and find the one that they're looking for because they know the general spot on the page it's going to be. So we'll go in, we'll talk with the VP of sales or marketing. We'll say, would you like us to clean this up? And they'd say, oh yeah, that'd be great. And we break everything into neat sections. Here's the contact information. Here's the address information. Here's their social media. Here's some specific questions. And then, that gets pushed out, and then salespeople lose their mind because they can't find anything. It's broken into sections. It's not the way it is. So any kind of change is hard, I think, huh?
Mm-hmm. Everyone's busy. It's hard to make changes when the cogs have to keep turning. You're kind of working on a live machine sometimes.
It really is. All righty. And then moving over to Zenatta.com, we've actually got a couple of blogs out this week. We've got Getting Started with Zoho or Kesley. Good job, team, on this one, kind of tearing through all of Zoho or Kesley, what you might want to use it for. We also have got Rapid Planning for Agile Development with Zoho Sprints, kind of another nice Zoho Sprints piece. And so two nice little pieces over there. And then we found two more resources guide from Zoho, an employer's guide to submit IT declarations, which is kind of interesting for Zoho to put something out. This is Zoho Payroll, and pretty interesting there. And then Invoicing 101. So the essential guide to creating the perfect invoice. And so good stuff. I don't know where the team is finding these, Tyler, but they're finding some pretty good stuff. They really are. All right.
Week over week, I'm waiting for the week where we're going to have nothing new in the resource guides.
Well, Wayne keeps telling me that I don't think I can find anything this weekend. I don't know, magically. Stuff keeps coming up. All right. And then we're going to go to our application of the week. And I am going all the way back to, I'm digging one out of that we've talked about before, but we haven't talked about it in 111 episodes. So I think it's okay. So I'm back on episode 5. We talked about this app. It's called Loom. And it's one that we use every single day here at Zenatta, many, many, many times a day. And it's basically a screen capture video recording application that allows you to quickly, rather than try to communicate, verbally or in writing, hey, you click here, do this, or I'm having this problem or that problem. It allows you to kind of just easily make a nice little video of a screen capture and kind of discuss, train someone or talk about what your overall problem is. And they just went through a massive rebranding with a bunch of changes. And I don't know, Tyler, we just love this application. I thought it was worth talking about it again.
Yeah, I think one of the things with this app is that it didn't have a ton of team settings, which was kind of the one prohibitive use of it, which I think was fine for us because we just, used a shared login. But there was really no way to have Brett and I both able to share videos back and forth and see what the other had recorded. And that's kind of, I think, the biggest update that they've made here, other than, kind of rebranding, changing some of the color palette. But, that ability to actually create teams where, we could share all of our folders amongst each other because, you don't just have one of us working on a client, multiple people might create videos for one single client. So we need to be able to share them. And that's kind of one of their new functionalities here. But overall, just a super slick application. It has a desktop app as well as extensions for all your favorite browsers. It's just super slick, clean, easy to use. Click 2 buttons and you're recording. So, we love it internally.
Yeah, good. Great application. And they've got Chrome extensions. I think they've got Firefox extensions. You've got local Windows applications. You've got Mac OS apps. So you can run it on your desktop. It's powerful stuff. And again, we can't highly recommend it enough. And then that brings us to our tip and trick of the week. This is kind of going back on what we talked about a little earlier with Zoho WorkDrive, about how you've got all these little preview modes. But the team over at Zoho put together a pretty nice video tutorial on basically how to create and extract zip files inside of Zoho WorkDrive. And one of the nifty things out with this as well is when you have a zip file in WorkDrive, you can click on it and it'll give you the list of the contents without opening it. So you can kind of look inside that zip file and see exactly what's in there. But their WorkDrive just gets better and better. I thought this kind of tied in with the the preview functionality they've added in. But now that you can, now that you can do this and create zip files and extract them, I think it's getting better and better.
I think we're going to have to pull the trigger on this changeover at some point here. Give the old Google Drive migration tool a test and see if we can pull everything over, because they've just done so much cool stuff with WorkDrive. I mean, their new CRM plugin where you get the whole file hierarchy under your account or under your contacts, and the integration abilities. You close win a deal, you go make an external folder, bring back the link, share it out in an email template. Like, there's just so much slick stuff with WorkDrive and the way it plugs into other apps. I think it's at that point now where we gotta make the change.
Yeah, well, we're in Mail right now, and that's working. And I pretty much live inside of all of the Zoho Office applications anyway. Those are become my de facto favorites. It's the big one's been Calendar, but there's no reason to move for WorkDrive other than the migration aspect, and we just need to get that done. So we'll get those migration tools and go. All right, and then that brings us to our Q&A section here. We don't really have one, but I want to thank everybody who kind of joined today. But we did have someone, I want to give him a comment here. Each CRM seems to have obvious flaws, limits, bugs that do not get resolved, and it frustrates attempts to use. With Zoho, an example is that calculated fields do not calculate for all records, so they do not report well. And Deluge use, not friendly. 30 plus years programming, I'm stuck with Deluge. Documentation is poor. Thanks. Just a comment. Any things you would say to maybe help point him in some other directions on that?
No, I mean, it kind of does. It brings up one of the core challenges with CRM, and it's probably why there are so many CRM products, right? Why hasn't one just kind of one across the board? Right. They all kind of have their drawbacks. And those little kind of bugs, right? Or not bugs, but just missing gaps. Like for Zoho, when you're talking about those calculated fields, we bump into that all the time because formula fields are great, right? You've got these 3 or 4 different data points. You want to calculate your profit, or you want to calculate, the interest rate that you should charge, whatever it might be. And you set up your formula, it works perfect, but only for new records or ones that are edited, right? So, generally you have to kind of have a bank of effectively workarounds, right, to work around some of these things. So it's one of those kind of things where all these different platforms are going to have their drawbacks and things that just don't quite work how you'd expect them to.
Well, that example, Tyler, though, we used to have workarounds, and then sometimes the workarounds don't work anymore, right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be that you could basically just create a dummy field, which we would call update, right? And then try to do a mass update of 100 records at a time, and it could kind of work through them. But then that stopped working.
Less consistently. Yeah, it's definitely less consistent nowadays.
Working. Yes. So, and we don't really, there's no real way to force, do we have any way to force an update when we do that now?
Well, for the formula fields, I think what Josh does, and this might be worth trying, Mark, is I generally use Deluge rather than formula fields, but for those, what he does is he sets a basic if condition on like a dummy field. So if you had all your math completed, you would have if checkbox is true, do all your math. Otherwise, do all your math. So both conditions of the if statement are just your math. And then you can kind of update a couple hundred at a time with that dummy field, which is basically like, run formula A, right? And when you check that, you're now editing something that actually is included in the formula field, which will push it to run. So it's a kind of silly workaround, but it's I think it's what Josh does when he uses formula fields on our team. And Deluge is a similar story. You just have to run a workflow on it. But even those I run at about 100 or 200 at a time when I'm mass updating for Deluge updates, and that seems to get it to run. It says that the limit's 500, but I don't. I generally see about half of them not run if I update 500 at a time. If I do 200 or less for mass updating with Deluge functions, you should be pretty good on the pass through. Very few should get skipped in that case. But it can be a little headache. But yeah, to the larger point, every CRM has the flaws, has the limitations, kind of has those things that that don't work perfectly. I think the advantage with Zoho and some of the ones that are more customizable is you can try to work around them, as best as we can. Oftentimes we can get within a standard deviation of ideal, hopefully half a standard deviation, but sometimes it's a challenge.
Yeah, it's tough. And, if you look at, we talk about this all the time, there's a ton of CRM packages. There's a ton of project management software. You and I are more, I think our
rows and columns.
Yeah, we're rows and columns guys, right? We're Airtable and Smartsheet. And Zoho makes all this project management. They don't make one like that. But those kind of what we like, but then you get other people and they, they came from maybe the Microsoft project world, and it's the whole thing. And sometimes I'll look at a CRM that someone thinks is amazing, and I don't understand. It's like music, it's whatever you like is what's the best one. Yep. And then how do you make that fit everybody in your organization? Because everybody in your organization doesn't like the same music. So it's a dance, to say the least. All right. Well, Tyler, with it, that is a wrap. If you have any questions or comments, you can please send us an email at info@zenatta.com, or just head over to actually crmzen.com now and drop us a line.
And on the website is where you'll find complete episodes with show notes with links to all the stories we discussed today. As always, you can subscribe to us on your favorite podcast app as well as on YouTube. We'll see you next Monday.